Craig, you can unmute anytime.
I'm unmuted. How are you, Will?
Good, good. Did you have any problem getting onto the meeting?
No.
Okay, good. It's just, I'm used to a bigger crowd for, I guess everybody wants to set aside their day to watch the debate.
Well, that is why the agenda is somewhat limited tonight. I wanted to make sure that we were done well before 9 o'clock. That and the cancellation of the 68th Street presentation that we were originally anticipating.
Yeah, you saw the article today?
I did.
Sorry, I meant to send it to you, but Felice, can you tell me what the problem was getting on tonight?
Sure. It was just, it seemed like it wasn't connecting to Zoom and it was hung up a little and there's a little bit of a delay. So maybe other people are having some issues.
I hope not, but that would make sense. Thank you, though.
You're welcome.
Will, did you, I know you said in an email that you were going to, you're expecting a constituent question that Marcus should be prepared to answer.
Correct.
Was that separate from the one that was asked a few weeks ago regarding how
Yes.
people with disabilities get on a bus?
Yes, very different from that one.
Okay.
And I relayed it to Marcus, so he is prepared to discuss it. I do want to flag for you that the person who first brought the 75th Street item, so item 2 on the agenda, emailed me today and said he's not able to make it, so we may not have somebody to speak on that item.
Okay. And I'm still trying to confirm whether the embassy has definitely moved or not. I know that I couldn't find any mention of it on their website. However, when I swung by the building this week, the plaque denoting it as the embassy is still on the building front.
I see. There's Chuck. And there's Marcus.
Okay, unmuted. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, sir.
Okay. So are we ready to start?
Really quickly, somebody has their hand up and I want to find out who they are. Phone number ending with 822, you have your hand up. Will you unmute with *6? And just let me know why you have your hand up. Phone number 822, ending with 822. Is that Betty?
Hi, yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, no, I think that was me. I did, I'm okay, so now I should go on *9 to do what?
Nope, you just, I just want to make sure you didn't need anything before. Yeah, just stay on, you'll *9 whenever you're ready to raise your hand for a question after they start.
Thank you, thank you.
Of course.
Are we ready to get started?
Yes.
Okay. I'd like to welcome everyone to the October meeting of the Transportation Committee of the Community Board 8. I'm Chuck Warren, co-chair of the committee, and Craig Lader, my other co-chair.
Hello.
Nice to see everyone, sort of. And our first item on the agenda is New York City Transit general updates on bus and subway service. And we should have Marcus Book here from the MTA, New York City Transit. And Marcus, are you here?
I am here. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can now hear you, and you're
Okay, so good evening, everybody. How is everybody?
unmuted, and you can take it away. Nice,
Okay.
nice to see you.
Beautiful. Nice to see you too, Chuck. So I'm just going to give you a general kind of update on where we stand, where the MTA stands right now in this October 2020, the year of COVID. So currently, right now, the MTA is experiencing about 200 million in revenue losses every week. So that's $200 million in lost revenue every week. And these declines are compounded by the loss of state and local taxes and subsidies that support the organization, and has left the MTA with a $16 billion projected deficit through 2024. So the bottom line is that the MTA needs about $12 billion in emergency federal aid to make it through 2021. So that $12 billion will sustain us through 2021. And we need that $12 billion because without that funding, we're going to be forced to reduce service up to 50%, lay off about 8,000 workers, and it will cause us to gut our historic $51.5 billion capital plan. These devastating cuts would also cost the region over 350,000 jobs and nearly 100 billion in economic activity in 2021. So in September 17th, thereabout, MTA Chairman and CEO Patrick Foy sent a series of letters to the MTA's 11 largest suppliers of train parts, bus and car and train manufacturers, and warned them that without an immediate injection of that $12 billion in federal aid, all current and future contracts with companies all the way from Kentucky to California are going to be in jeopardy. So since 2011, the MTA has created about as many as 100,000 out-of-state jobs in nearly all 50 states, and the MTA capital expenditures are among the nation's largest drivers of economic activity, generating nearly $50 billion in infrastructure investment nationwide. So that's where we stand. Pretty dire, pretty critical, and we are in need of that $12 billion in federal aid, which, you know, as you can all read, is not really forthcoming, and we're not sure when and how that's going to transpire. But right now, we are operating fully with existing funds to take us through the end of the year. But that's where things get critical. So that's an overview of where we stand at the authority right now. I'm also here prepared to answer questions about anything from Omni to the MetroCard mobile sales, buses and vans, and anything else that you guys would like me to talk about. I just want to make a plug, because we have been over the last few months doing what we call a mask force, and this is basically getting elected officials, our staff at the MTA, staff from local elected officials' offices, and community organizations to help us assist in handing out masks, because we are seeking to get 100% compliance in mask usage on subways and buses. And we're doing rather well. We're in the high 90s. And just recently, following Governor Cuomo's announcement that there would be $50 fines for those who refuse to wear a mask in the subway or a bus. Just so you know, to date, we've given out about 16 summonses for 6 summonses through Tuesday over 16 days. But of the about 2,500 interactions with people, meaning walking up to a person and asking them to please comply with the mask rule, most of those people are complying. If you refuse to wear a mask, then you should probably stay home and not use the subway system or the bus system. And we've given out thousands and thousands of masks. And if someone does not have a mask and they're in the subway system or bus system, all they need to do is ask for one and they'll be given one. So our position is not to give out fines to people. We hold that as a last resort measure, but we're looking for 100% compliance with mask usage in the system. So those are my opening statements. I would say that I can just open it up to questions now.
Well, I was going to say, hi, Mark. This is Craig. I was going to suggest that maybe we just address a few of the questions that some of our constituents had sent to us that we have already forwarded to you, hopefully addressing some of the questions that may be asked tonight.
Okay.
If that's okay. I know that we had sent you a few questions just regarding Omni and the status of it, and some questions specific to how seniors or those who are using reduced fare Metro cards will be able to use Omni, and if they're able to use Omni immediately, or if there's going to be a lag in the time until they will be able to use it. If you can just answer those questions.
No problem. So let's just say if a constituent is concerned about whether or not his or her reduced fare senior Metro card would stop working with the implementation of Omni, I assure you that we will continue to accept reduced fare Metro cards until they have all been replaced with a comparable contactless fare card that works with the new Omni system. So right now we're outfitting the system, and all 151 Manhattan subway stations and all 800 plus Manhattan buses are completely outfitted with Omni contactless equipment. So yes, you will be able to continue to use your reduced fare Metro card that you are in possession of now until we have a comparable contactless fare card that works with the new Omni system. Now, the question would come second, what are our plans to have that type of senior Metro card that is contactless? We do plan to have that, but we ask that you manage your expectations. It will likely take a couple of years to swap out all of the existing inventory that we have of reduced fare Metro cards with compatible reduced fare Omni cards. So you can continue to use your Metro card until all of that is completed. Another question that people ask is, can a senior Metro card be used until Omni is fully operational, which is currently planned for 2023, and that is correct. Reduced fare Metro cards will continue to be accepted until all reduced fare Metro cards have been replaced with a comparable contactless card that works with Omni. So basically, the long answer is you can use the card until we've got everything up and running.
All right, thank you for that. And anyone who has follow-up questions, feel free to ask when we get to the general public's opportunity to ask questions. The other question we received had to do with the role of bus operators and how they how they're supposed to assist passengers who need assistance getting on buses, such as those in wheelchairs, and how COVID plays into that. So
Okay.
you can please respond to that question.
No problem. So this one is a bit tricky, but the bottom line is that if a person requests assistance with a wheelchair or walker to board the bus, the driver is obliged to assist that person. I mean, that's just common sense, and if someone needs assistance, we should be providing assistance. That being said, the passenger in a wheelchair or a walker, because we have the drop-down gate that comes down onto the sidewalk, they should first enter the bus. Okay, the driver's locked into his compartment, into the bus, and then if they need assistance with securing themselves in the bus, then the driver will come out of his driving position and assist them. Will there be a situation where someone is trigger shy about assisting someone because of their safety? That's a possibility. I would only ask that if that situation occurs, again, I started this out by saying that if assistance is requested, the driver should assist the passenger. But if that driver doesn't assist the passenger, then just like any other, non-compliant misbehavior, I would just ask you to just, note the date, time, and the bus number, and we can find out what the problem was with that driver and why they chose not to assist the passenger.
All right. And then the other final question I had before we pass it along to the public is in regards to one of the items that we were going to have today that had to be postponed, and that is the 68th Street subway station and the ADA access. And I received some questions, and there was an article that was in the city today about the providing a little bit of an update. Can you just briefly provide a little update as to when a presentation could be expected and where we stand right now?
All right, so we were going, like the gentleman just said, we were going to present this to the community board this evening, but there is still some open issues that need to be worked out, and we have to do some final submittals to the FTA before we can go to the public with this. But essentially, as the article outlined, it's about taking the elevator. When we presented this to you guys in the past, the elevator was underneath the inside the property line of the Hunter College entrance on the southeast corner. So to avoid a lot of complications associated with installing an elevator there, we're proposing to move that elevator across the street to the northeast corner. And that will solve a lot of problems, and there would be potentially a bump out to get it away from the building, and a reconfiguring of the stairwell in that corner. But like I said, those details will be outlined in a presentation, which we anticipate to be able to give to you guys before the end of the year.
All right, great. And we look forward to that.
Before we turn to the public, I just want to recognize we have a new person that's joined the staff of our board office, and it's Max Vandervliet, and there's Max waving, and we want to welcome Max. I know he's going to be helping us in the committee and helping Will in general. So welcome, Max.
Thank you very much.
Welcome.
As our tradition is, we recognize members of the public first. And if there are any members of the public who would like to speak, please raise your hand. You have the raise hand. If you're on Zoom, you have the raise hand icon there, and you should show that. And Will, I don't know, sometimes I have a list, but it doesn't get everybody here. So maybe you can see any.
And if you're on the phone, it's *9 to raise your hand. And I see Betty Cooper Wallerstein has raised her hand.
Okay, well, Betty, why don't you unmute Betty and let's hear from Betty.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can hear you.
Good. Thank you so much, Marcus, for your being here and giving us so much information. I do want to tell you that I have noticed on the First Avenue, 72nd and 79th and the 31, the drivers have been unusually assisting and very, very nice about assisting people who needed to have a little help with wheelchairs. They really have been wonderful. And even before everyone was allowed to go in the front, those people who were in wheelchairs were allowed to come in through the front door. So they really have been excellent about that. However, I was concerned because at first I was very happy that not the bus but the truck was starting last month, and the one that comes to 79th on Wednesdays was usually in the past was here from 11:30 to 1:30, and then I think it goes to 72nd Street. Last week there was a line all the way around the block. They came a little bit. I think it's a different time now. I think it's 10 o'clock, but they were there only an hour. And I actually was in line, but it was by the time I was coming up, they had left. But I didn't know until this morning that because you did say that the reduced fare cards are good until such time as the other plan is in effect. But they did not. People were waiting to put money on their cards. The seniors were told by the person in the truck that they had to go to the subway stations in order to get money put onto the cards. So they had their senior cards. They just over the course of time didn't have the funds on them. So and that was again said today. So what happens with that? Because obviously they can't do the stairs to go to the desk, the information booth in the subway stations. Hello? I don't know. I think I got
Marcus is muted. If we could unmute Marcus.
Oh,
Of course.
Craig, did you hear me?
Yes, we heard you.
Oh, okay. Okay. All
We
right.
got you. Hi, Betty. How are you?
I'm
Hope you're
good.
well.
I'm so happy to hear your voice and hear what you have to say.
Okay. So, Betty, right now, with the MetroCard mobile sales vans, we are sort of continuing with COVID protocols. As such, until further notice, those vans will not be handling any cash or credit or debit card transactions. They will, however, be able to transfer value from one card to another, which was a big ask of a lot of folks prior to us bringing it back. So what I anticipate is that slowly but surely, depending, of course, on how things go with the city and the pandemic, we have to sort of change protocols. We've got a lot of unions, lots of different people. We lost over 100 some odd people to COVID-19. So there's a lot of safety protocols in place. So that prevents us from currently, as a policy, handling any cash or credit card transactions. So that means that if you go to the van, they won't be able to, take money and put value on the card. Right now, the way that you can do that is, and they said to go to the subway station because there are vending machines there that a person can do that at those locations. There are some station booths in the subway that are also making reduced fare MetroCard transactions. They are not making cash transactions, however. And those are very limited, and they were just announced like this week. So this is a work in progress. This is a difficult thing for our staff to be involved in a pandemic situation, operating in small quarters in a van and dealing with transactions face to face. So this is developing. So in small stages, the only thing that I can really say about this, and I don't know about internet access, but we have a page on our website that has the latest information, and things change, week to week. So if you can stay in touch with our MetroCard reduced fare transaction portion in the website, that'll keep you up to date as to where we are. But as of right now, those vans are not cannot make the transaction that you mentioned.
Well, Marcus, and it's really important. There are two people in the truck, and it really is a truck. But there are two people. There are two people. Instead of telling the seniors that they can't put, and there were some who were not seniors, that they can't put any money on the cards, they should certainly tell them that they, however, can apply to get the new, so that they can, be on the list when things are changed. Nothing was said to that effect. So that's number one, that if they're there, they should be able to also take people who want to make a change of card, and they should tell them that, not just to say that we can't add any funding to your cards. And secondly, the other thing is that that as far as going to subway stations, the ones that do have it, they can't do that. Now the seniors are terribly dependent upon the buses. And so we have to try to figure out some way for them to be able to use the bus service in the meantime. So what do you suggest that we can do? Because now there's going to be another month's wait, another 2 weeks wait until they come. I mean, if the next time that they're coming, which is going to be, in about 2 or 3 weeks, if they are prepared to take, people's registration to change their card, then that would accomplish something. It still doesn't help them using the card now, being able to use. Now, when and I'm not familiar with the Omni plan. So, then when that new card comes by 2023, will that now continue to be a reduced fare for seniors, or will it not be?
No, it would be. It would continue to be reduced fare.
Yeah. Well, we have to figure out a way that people will be able to get to use the buses, which they need to go back and forth for their medical appointments and for other needs as they go out.
Okay, understood, Betty.
So that's an issue. Mm-hmm.
Understood. And I just want you to know that they are currently working really hard to try to figure out how to make that happen so that we can both ensure that seniors can use the bus and at the same time ensure that our employees are safe. Okay, so what I will do is I will take back your feedback about how the attendants in the vans are communicating with the public, and let them know that it's possible that they need to get some more training on how to share information so that people leave that experience with some knowledge that's useful to them.
And we also have to get that information that the time has changed too, because we didn't know that.
It's pretty much on the fly, Betty. I wish that we could get that information out sooner, but I think we're in a situation where we're fortunate to have them out there at all. Really, to be honest with you.
Okay, now the last question I have has to do with people not wanting to wear masks. And I just wanted to know, I heard what you were saying. I have not noticed any. I'm not traveling that much. But the one I have been on, I've noticed that most people have masks. But if someone does not have a mask, and you say that masks are available to be given, and they don't want to, then they should not be able to enter the bus. So is that the way it's working? Because it wasn't working that way before, because nobody wants to start a fight and have a problem. But someone who says, I don't want to wear a mask, was able to get on a bus that I was on. And everybody on the bus spoke to that person about the fact that he should wear a mask or walk. But anyway, so where does that stand? The person doesn't have a mask. He's offered one, you said, by the driver, and he doesn't want it. So what happens?
Well, I mean, again, so this is a situation where the driver would make a judgment call. He would either not move that bus and leave it and try to alert a police officer to have the person removed from the bus. That driver cannot and should not act as a policeman and attempt to force in any way that person to use the mask. So I mean, again, this is one of the things there. thousands of buses in the subways, in the system, and it's impossible to have an Eagle team member on every bus. It's impossible to have, police officers on every train. But if they are, and someone can alert a law enforcement personnel, of course that person can be asked to either don the mask or leave the bus.
Now, is there a sign? I'm sorry, Marcus. Is there a sign? Because sometimes that helps. There are a lot of signs on the buses now.
Yes,
But is there a sign that said you must wear a mask? So at least there's something that people see before they even get on, or see it when they get on. I don't know.
Yes,
Are there signs?
Yesterday. Yes, there are.
Mhm.
And
Okay.
not only that, the buses should be, and I don't know if you've heard it, we had to temporarily suspend it because at one point the message was being voiced over by Rosie Perez, and believe it or not, people had something to say about that. So in the days coming, you're going to hear messages again on the buses that say, essentially, keep your fellow passengers safe and please ensure that you're wearing a mask while you're on our system. So there'll be, in addition to the signage, there'll also be announcements made on the bus.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else from the public? Will, do you see anybody else?
No, not from the public. You have 2 board members who have their hands up. Lori.
Right, I see Lori and Michelle. So why don't we unmute Lori? She was first, so Lori Boris.
Lori, you just have to confirm unmuting.
Okay.
Perfect. We can hear you.
Thank you. Thank you, Marcus, for the update, which was very useful and I appreciate it. And I'm totally puzzled by anyone would be offended by Rosie Perez. And I'd love to hear that story, but that's not my question. My question is just picking up on what the last speaker said is on the issue of purchasing on the buses. Why isn't it possible for to have one of those machines, but even to have like a laptop? Like, wouldn't it be possible for someone to even stand outside of the bus, maybe the second person or whatever, could stand outside with a laptop and just take credit cards? I mean, because most people have a credit card, and if they wear gloves, I don't see what the problem is. I mean, many businesses have done that. They've adapted this, like touchless, they don't even have to touch the credit card. They just, put the laptop in front of people and they do it, like it's essentially, it's a touchless system without, a lot of effort. Why can't that be done?
Okay, so the truth is that sure, that can be done. The infrastructure for that just doesn't exist. And so I know exactly what you're talking about. It's a compact, handheld.
It's a tablet.
Device. Right. And what would you do? I mean, I think that they're working through all of those kinks and they haven't gotten there yet. Okay, so would you do that for the M15? But you'd have to do that everywhere. Okay, you can't provide a service.
No. I'm sorry. You misunderstand what I'm saying. I'm not talking about an individual buses. I'm talking about the fare collection buses, the buses that Betty was talking about that come around once a month. And she's saying that they can't refill their half price.
They're working through that. They haven't gotten there yet. Those are great suggestions. And I think those are applicable if they can be applied within the context of our system and our unions and all that stuff. We're working through all of that.
Yeah,
we're trying to get to the point where it's possible for you guys to be able to make these transactions.
Okay. I know that it's that seniors and other half price riders are not necessarily at the top of the list. However, they are a great number of people who use the system. And I really think that an extra push should be made to make it possible for them to continue to use the system.
Understood.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Lori. Next is Michelle Bernstein. Mom? Can unmute
Yes,
Michelle?
thank you. Thanks, Marcus, very much for being here. Am I misinformed to think that there is a prepaid way to load your card? That if you can do this by mail, by sending in your credit card in whatever form necessary to the MTA, and they automatically keep it replenished? Isn't that a system?
That is a system. I don't have the website up in front of me, but I think that might be an option. I would certainly check the website and look into that. I can't confirm.
Well, I've been doing that for years, and to me, that's the most efficient thing to do. You set a certain limit on the card, and there's an automatic refill, so that your card is never empty. And you can put as little as $20 on it or 50, whatever you want. But to me, and that to me has been a convenience all the years, but certainly during these times, that takes any transaction out of the realm of the public. There's zero contact with anybody for that. So if you're feeling that information is not widely spread, maybe that could be part of your, public announcements or your signs in the bus to say, go to this website and put your credit card on and get automatic renewals, whatever the department thinks is correct as a way of pushing that. But to me, that makes the most sense. You don't need additional devices. You don't need a new program. It's in place. You just have to advertise it so people use it.
Understood. That's a fantastic suggestion, Michelle. And as part of my feedback, tomorrow, when I talk about what we discussed tonight, I'm going to add that to some of the ways that some of these agents in the vans and the buses can educate people who are
thank you. Thanks. With respect to the buses, you actually could put a sign on the outside of the bus. I don't mean the traveling buses. I mean the card buses, that come. There could be, because as Betty is reporting, that there are, people lining up. Well, rather than line up, if they saw signs on the buses that said, go to this website, fill out the form, put your credit card on it, and you'll be getting a pre-filled Metro card. So that certainly could be one way to handle this, part of it anyway.
Understood. Thank you.
Okay, terrific. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Next, we have Rebecca's iPhone. Now I see Rebecca Dangor. Is this Rebecca Lamort?
Yeah, I don't know. So
let's get.
It's Rebecca Lamort. Sorry, I'll change my name. My bad. I just wanted to, similarly to Lori's comments around finding new technologies to be used, just because I'm very concerned that the MTA is telling people to go into subway stations since cash and coins aren't being accepted to refill and to get reduced fare Metro cards. For people with disabilities, that's a real barrier because less than 25% of the transit system is accessible. And in our community, yes, there's the Q train, but if you live closer to the Lexington Avenue line, you're not so lucky to have accessibility to get there if you have mobility impairments. So just really would like the MTA to get creative and be sure we're not, further disenfranchising people with disabilities from using the system, especially during COVID when there's so many other, stresses and issues that we're all facing.
Point taken.
Thank you. Thank you, Rebecca. I see Cos Spagnoletti. So can we unmute Cos, wherever you are?
Cos, there you go.
I think with Michelle's point, it's easypaymetrocard.com. It's been there ever since they started it. And when I got mine on the bus, they told me you could do either way. So, it is available and it should be on the statement. Couple of points for Marcus. So you're saying that if somebody doesn't wear a mask in the subway, they can get a fine, correct?
Correct.
Does that include the police department? Okay, the other one, as far as the touchless, I think this came up 5-10 years ago. And at that stage, I can't remember who was on the MTA then. They said, yeah, they're working on it. I mean, where we are now with technology and where the rest of the world is with these touchless buses and subways, they've had it for 20, 30, 40 years. So I'm confused with, with the MTA being in the 21st century, why we are so far behind in technology and in ease of use for the common person.
Akash, appreciate that. And unfortunately, I don't make those decisions. And when they decided to begin the transition to touchless fare payment, that was made way above my pay grade. And I can't answer that question. I think we can all surmise, just how things go. We've all been using the transit system. I've been using it for my entire life, close to 60 years. And it's been what it is. And we've transitioned and now we're moving ahead.
Okay.
It's an old system. It's an old system. And I can't answer. I wish I could.
But didn't you have the touchless many, many years ago at 77th Street? And I think at that stage it was just Citibank credit card.
Yeah, I think there might have been a pilot. There might have been a pilot way back when, but
Right.
I don't know whatever became of that. I don't know whether or not that technology is even being used right now. But it probably informed, when we began to go full steam ahead with this transition.
Okay, thanks.
I didn't see anyone else. Did you see anyone else, Will?
No, that's everybody. Well, Betty has her hand back up now for another question.
Okay, unmute Betty.
Betty, *6.
Okay, she's up.
Hi there. I just, I'm really in shock that we would be going all the way back. Sorry, Michelle, first time in all these years. I hear what you're saying, but you must understand that that didn't work and that many people did not have the ability to use email or to go on the web. But more than that, you have to send it in, and then it could take anywhere from 2 to 3 weeks until they send the card back. Now, what Laurie said is very accurate, too. I mean, it's really unacceptable to say that the, seniors will just have to wait a few weeks until we see what we can do with that. No, the reason that we started to have the vans coming out was precisely so people could go and get the money put on their cards. So we certainly aren't going to go backwards now. And I think that I really find it, extremely shocking to hear that, well, we can't do anything about the people now. So what Laurie said was very good. You have two people in the truck, and they're both telling everybody that they can't get their money. So one of them could certainly be there to be able to get, to do the funding. So I hope that we're not going to go back to asking people again to send cards back and forth. We went through that and we came with something better. And that was the whole purpose for the reason starting this. So I think that I really think it's unacceptable to say that the seniors are going to have to wait. And it isn't just seniors, other people too, who for one reason or another either aren't close to a subway or can't do the stairs twice to go down and get your card and then come back up because you can't use the train. I think we have to do a little better than that. Thank you for giving me a chance to respond to that.
Thank you, Betty. Okay, I think, why don't we, I see Michelle, why don't we just call a halt to this? I'd like to move.
Well, actually, before you do that, can I actually ask a few questions?
Of course.
No, that's okay. Because I wanted to, me being a planner, I can't not think about planning type of issues. So I guess my question for Marcus is, understanding the environment we're in and the budgetary limitations that we have and the potential cuts taking place, where do we stand in terms of the planning process for 96th Street Select Bus Service? I know it was part of the Better Bus Action Plan, which is in question in terms of its funding and potential implementation. But is that something that operations planning has been working on? And is it something that New York City Transit is still looking to implement if funding is available to do it?
Yes, yes. And the answer to your question is yes. You know, all the behind the scenes work on all that stuff continues to go on when allowable, but you know, everything's on hold right now. So,
All right.
well, let's get on the other side of this and we can talk about that.
All right. And that was one of my questions, just thinking about future meetings, whether we want to begin thinking about this even before it may be implemented, so we could have those preliminary discussions, or whether it's worth waiting. And alongside of that, I know that COVID put a lot of initiatives and updates on hold, but I know that one of the updates that we've been eagerly awaiting was the status of 79th Street Select Bus Service post-implementation. Is that something that at some point in the not too distant future, you would be able to, or staff would be able to provide an update on? Understanding, of course, that everything changed as of March and we'd have to essentially not look at the data for the last 6 months to understand how it's been working, from comparing at least before implementation to the time from implementation through February 2020.
Yeah, that, you know, it's a reasonable ask. I'll inquire about it.
Right. And alongside of that, I know that I don't remember exactly when it was put in, but the Lexington Avenue bus lane, I know we were also looking forward to an update on how that had impacted bus operations. And again, I don't know if we had a full year of its implementation before COVID. I actually think we probably didn't hit a year. If I recall, I think it was implemented in late summer 2019. But again, that's something else that we were looking at. And then finally, just another follow-up. 2 years ago, we had sent a letter requesting a lot of data regarding bus ridership within Community District 8. And I just want to follow up on that and remind you that we're still looking for that and see.
I remember seeing that. I don't know. I think after it reached, you gotta understand, Craig, that that coincided with a lot of transitional stuff within the authority. We changed presidents, you know, midstream, and I don't know if it's the letters on the president's desk or what, but I know we received it, and I remember seeing it move through, but I'll ask about the status of that.
All right, and just following up, looking at where we are now, I think one of the things that we as a community are interested in is understanding just how our community has been impacted by COVID, and that extends to the transportation network. So it would be really great if we were able to access some information to be able to see on a community level how ridership on buses and within our subway stations has changed pre and post COVID, and how the recovery has taken place. Just to understand how many people are re-entering the system in our community, buses versus subways, just top line figures comparing things from before COVID to currently. I think that would be very informative for us. So
do me a favor. You asked 3 questions that, you know, are in the realm of possibility, but I have to follow up on it. So if you can shoot me an email with the 79 SBS question, the Lex bus lane question, and that question, I will try to get you a follow-up.
All right, I appreciate that. And I think that's all I have for now.
Okay. I don't know if Michelle still wants to say something on that, but she says yes. So hopefully short and sweet, because I'd
I
like to.
wanted to just, I'm sorry, I just wanted to clarify something for Betty. I'm hoping she didn't misunderstand something. To use that Metro card that has prepayment on it, you do not have to go online to do it, and you do not have to do that repeatedly. It's a one-time thing. The forms may even be available on the truck. You fill it out once and you never, ever, ever have to go anywhere or do anything to fill it again. Your card stays with you. It just automatically gets filled. So I just wanted to clarify that because it sounded like you misunderstood, like you had to go online or you have to go and refill it every month. No, you do nothing. You get this form. For all I know, the post office has the form, or maybe Marcus could tell us where the form is.
I believe that form is on that bus, or it's on that van.
It's on the bus, so that's even better. So I just wanted to clarify. And in the interim time, if you're concerned that you're waiting 3 weeks for your initial card, at that time, you can go to the bus and you can refill until this becomes activated. But there's no repeat action. I just wanted to clarify that.
Thank you. Thank you, Michelle. That's true. I do the same thing. Okay, Marcus, thank you. We appreciate your report, and we look forward to seeing you back again when we're talking about the 68th Street subway and other things. And so hopefully you stay well, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you, sir. It's good to see all of you.
Thank you. Okay, item number 2. This is a request to change parking regulations near 412, 414 East 75th Street. Do we have anybody? Is there anybody here is there an applicant here? I know we had a request for this. Is there anyone here on this request?
Right. Will was saying right before you signed on that the person who had contacted us may not be able to be present.
Okay. What maybe we'll just put this off then until our usual procedure is if there's not, if somebody makes the request and they're not here to present on it, we usually don't go forward with it. So why don't we put that off until the next meeting, and hopefully that person can make it. Number 3, 72nd Street between York Avenue, east of York Avenue. And this is a request to change the parking regulations to address illegal parking. And I don't know, is Colleen here? Yes, yeah, I do see Colleen.
Right.
And why don't we, is there anyone here who wants to speak on that request?
And I believe there were, sorry, Chuck. There have been 2 people who'd emailed our office about it. Sandy has her hand up to talk about it.
Yeah, good. Why don't we unmute Sandy?
Sandy, you just need to hit *6.
Hello?
Yes.
All right, we can hear you.
We can hear you, Sandy.
Yes. First of all, I want to thank you for how quickly you put this on the agenda, because I sent my letter in on the 29th of last month. This street has become unbearable. It is dangerous. People are getting injured. Things cannot get through the street, like ambulances and fire trucks. And it's appalling that we have had nothing come through to help us, except one day this week, we did see a police car come through and shoo everybody away. This has nothing to do with parking. This has to do with deliveries. Tons of deliveries. Would you like to ask me something about the street?
Well, you say what are the parking regulations on the street there, Sandy?
Well, there is parking, and I don't have a car, so I haven't read the sign. There's some parking. They have eliminated some parking so that there's a cross street now. So there's a safety area where people can cross. But what we have are giant trucks. I mean, enormous, delivering furniture, supplies to the hospitals that are here. Suddenly we have 2 new hospitals on the street. And since COVID, everybody orders online. So we have deliveries coming in. But I have seen fire trucks fighting to get to the end of the street when we've had minor fires. And this street has to be uncongested. It is beyond belief. And the honking starts at 8 a.m. and does not end until 5 p.m. This all day. So you have seniors, you have people working at home, you have children, etc. It is unbearable. I don't know how this can end. There has to be more signage as you enter the street besides dead end, something that you will be fined if you start honking your car. I'm really throwing this back at you because I did contact DOT. They said no, they couldn't help me. Go to the police. The police couldn't help me. Go to 311. So I finally contacted you guys.
Well, let me ask you.
And here we sit.
Is that where Sotheby's is also?
Oh boy, yes. And they're enormous trucks in and out. Yeah, tie up the street.
Well, maybe we can ask Colleen Chattergoon, who is our representative from DOT, what she knows about that. Colleen, are you here? Can we unmute Colleen?
Hey, yes, it's Colleen from DOT. How are you?
Hi.
Hey, I'm sorry about what you're experiencing, but changing the sign is not going to deal with the issue of the double parking, because
I didn't mean to. I'm sorry. I don't mean changing the sign. I mean, this is a teeny tiny sign that says dead end. No one even pays attention to it. You know what I was saying? They just come in and jam up the street.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest with you. It's something that should be handled by the local precinct.
They don't want to touch it.
Will, can we reach out to the precinct and see what they can do?
I'm happy to do
Well, they
that.
did. Yeah, that would be fabulous. They did send a patrol car. I had contacted Kalos's office, and a patrol car showed up a couple of days ago and got rid of the traffic in the middle of the street. But they would have to do this 5-6 times a day. That's not going to happen, really.
No, yeah, you're right. It's not going to happen given the circumstances.
No. But, you've got high rises here on this street, really big high rises.
Double parking, is that what the issue is?
Triple parking. Triple and quadruple. It's a very wide street. It's almost 5 lanes. Every inch is covered by a vehicle. I'm not joking. I have photos of it. And my doorman they lose their minds downstairs because they hear the honking all day long.
Yeah.
It's pretty awful.
I was just going to say, this is Craig, that it looks like the parking regulations on the street have truck parking for most of the block, and then once you get closer to the end, to the dead end, it becomes no standard. So if we received an initial email back in late July, I believe from someone else.
Really?
Issue, and they were just essentially mirroring what you were saying, Sandy, in terms of people parking in the cul-de-sac, and they were saying that it was also from people waiting for those who are coming out of the hospitals.
Yes,
in addition,
HSS has a facility on the street with doctor's offices. So you have cabs and vehicles waiting for patients. Yeah.
Yes. And even if you look at the Google Street View, you can see a truck parked perpendicular to the roadway at the end of the street. So I think we all recognize the issues that exist, but Colleen, I guess now, again, maybe you can help us determine what our
I hope
various
so.
options are, if it's just solely an enforcement issue, or if we need to, if there are any other signs within the DOT inventory that we could put on to help with the situation, or even if we need to eliminate parking entirely, probably would not solve the issue.
No, and
I
even
don't
if we were
think
to
it
limit
would.
parking,
No.
motorists would still park there. I mean, we don't have a sign that would deter this. And it really is an enforcement issue. It really is.
Yeah, I hear you. Yes. And I was hoping to have, the police department patrol. They no longer come up the street giving tickets to trucks. That's ended. That ended almost a year ago. They were very vigilant about that. And that's over.
Yeah. I suggest, this is Chuck. Let me suggest that,
Hi.
That we have a further hearing on this, and then we call in Sotheby's and we call in the Hospital for Special Surgery and talk about who else is on that block that we can call in, because it's, as we know from experience in the committee, relying on enforcement is not a solution, because you may get it, but you're not going to get it on a regular basis. There's just not.
Oh, no, of course not. I think that's a wonderful idea.
Let's see if we.
That's one way of attacking it. Yeah.
Why don't we try to do that, Sandy? And why don't we get a couple of other comments and we'll see what we can do.
Great.
Betty Cooper Wallerstei would like to comment on this. So can we unmute Betty?
Chuck, I was going to say that you may remember, it's already 10 years ago, that we did have a meeting with the hospitals and with Sotheby's with regard to the problems at 72nd Street, because even now, that's a cul-de-sac and it's very, very crowded. But even now, it's once you're on the 31, when you get to 73rd Street, you don't move for 15 minutes because the bus is making a turn on 72nd Street, making a right turn, gets stuck in the middle, and all the traffic north of it is sitting and waiting. So what we did 10 years ago after that meeting was that special surgery agreed that they didn't have anything on 72nd Street in the cul-de-sac then, but they agreed that they would get a traffic agent that would be at 71st Street, you'll remember, because of the traffic coming off the drive that was also going against the lights and was crowded. But for 72nd Street, the city did put in a traffic enforcement officer, and that worked for a while. But once in a while they're there, but they're not there all the time. But we did have a meeting with each of the hospitals and with Mary Manning to make sure, and certainly with the, with all the people sitting, having their cars waiting for them to come out of the different programs and shows that were at the corner. I've forgotten the name now. So that was all taken away, and people were not able to sit in front with their cars as chauffeurs and waiting. They had to come back. But we were able to empty that, but it's gotten worse and worse. And I don't know if the special surgery still has 71st Street, anybody there, but there is hardly ever anyone from traffic that was assigned to do 72nd Street.
Okay, well, as I said, I think we should bring them in and see what we can work out and hopefully get something done. Why don't we go to Tricia Shimamura next? Can we unmute Tricia? Wanting to say something on this?
Yeah, I live right there too. I'm on 425 East 72nd Street, and I just want to say that Sandy's 100% right. I was going to bring this up to you guys anyways. She's absolutely right. People are triple booked there, and I have to say that I think that it's great, the plan to bring in Sotheby's and hospitals for special surgery, but I honestly being there every day and seeing this intersection every day, I think that it's more so the hospital than anything else. There's a lot of idling. A lot of people who just sit in their cars and they're just waiting for people, but it is triple parked, to the point where I don't even like my husband walking over there because you can't, I'm afraid that somebody's going to get hit. It's very, very crowded. I will just say that I'm glad that you're going to have this as another agenda item, because I wish that Valerie from East 72nd Street Neighborhood Association is here. And I just wish that we could flag this for her too, because the neighborhood association may have other things to say about this and could add to it. I did, Sandy, if you saw, I think it was yesterday, I saw a traffic cop out there yesterday, and it was making some difference, but truly it's, I mean, the end of the cul-de-sac there is awful, but the entire corridor is so bad with the double parking, and it's really turned into a one-lane street in the middle of Monday through Friday, to the point of where people are pausing and letting one car go in one direction, then they stop and they let another car go in the other direction. It's turned into a one-way street, like a one-path bridge, basically, in some of these areas. So really, I think bringing all the key players together, but also including East 72nd Street Neighborhood Association is a great plan.
Thank you, Tricia. Michelle Birnbaum, I think, is next. And can we unmute Michelle?
Yeah, hi. I think that's the only way to handle it, Chuck. I think there are two different problems. The intersection is one issue. No question that it's impacted by the heavy traffic that's actually on 72nd east of York. But the intersection is a separate issue that we've been talking about for 100 years. With respect to the street east of York, as we all know, it's a cul-de-sac. Most people who in automobiles or trucks or whatever vehicle that go down that street are fully aware that it's a dead end, and they're going down there purposefully. There's nobody that's just happens to be driving down there. So there's a reason for them to be there. So the question is, what's the most efficient way of handling those people who have a need to be there? The Sotheby's freight entrance is on the south corner, just east of York Avenue. That poses one set of problems, but they actually have a drive-in freight entrance. So that could be mitigated if they would time their pickups and deliveries or whatever they're doing. As you go further down the south side of the street, you have the back entrance of one of the special surgery ambulatory care buildings. There's a back entrance. The main entrance is on 71st, where there usually is an attendant at the stop sign that comes off the drive at 71st. That attendant has been there routinely. It was also a request of ours. It seems to have helped that street. But again, those people that are coming out on 72nd are exiting there because it's closer to the bus stop, exiting there because a car is picking them up. And then, of course, you have the medical building on the north side of the street that houses, a ton of offices and imaging centers and all kinds of things. You have two buildings there. And then you have high-rise residential. So without question, there's going to be loading and unloading and Amazon and Fresh Direct and about 40,000 other things. So I think it's not only a good idea to bring like special surgery and Sotheby's in, but also to bring representatives from each of those buildings, because we can ask those doormen to monitor the Amazon, the Fresh Direct, those kind of personal deliveries. Because just as we did on Madison Avenue for the Morton Williams, when those trucks were blocking the bus lane and causing havoc every morning, Morton Williams getting involved to monitor the traffic ended up being very helpful. So I think it's a great idea to bring everybody in, but I would just like to add to that list to bring in representatives, whether it be a superintendent or whoever each building thinks they could send, and a representative from the institutions as well.
Thank you, Michelle.
Thanks.
That's helpful. I agree. Next up is Alita Camp, our board chair. Always glad to see her. Would you unmute Alita? Will? Yeah, I think you're unmuted, Alita. Yeah.
I am. Thank you so much, Chuck. That's nice. I'm wondering if Sotheby's trucks have one of those, you pay a certain amount per year and then the tickets don't really count so much, which would raise the question of talking about that throughout the district. And if not, the timing, as Michelle suggested, that if Sotheby's could time delivery so that they didn't clog traffic, which also would reverberate throughout the district if it's something that I know we've talked about it before with respect to stores on the avenues and delivery times. So these are specific examples which obviously have an impact on the traffic there, but may just be part of a bigger question that maybe the Transportation Committee might want to look at. Thank you.
Thank you, Alita. Craig, I know, Craig, you wanted to say some things here.
Yes, so I actually have a question for Colleen regarding this. And just for everyone's information, we know that we need to come back to parking placard, and we anticipate that may very well be a discussion in November, but this sort of relates as well to the situation here in terms of are there, I know you said there are no signs in the inventory that can address this situation, but one of the fundamental issues that clearly is in play is the fact that people don't necessarily respect no standing signs, or no standing signs are really no standing signs for those who don't get special benefits. So what can be done to, or has there ever been discussion of having something stricter than no standing, or to make it clear that no standing really means no standing, no exceptions?
So it's no stopping. It would be a no stopping signage, which would means, listen, don't even pull up there, don't even use this curb, or don't even stop here for pickup and drop off. No stopping is the most stringent sign.
Right. So
yeah, but Colleen, wait a second, Colleen. We had someone write in and said they approached a traffic agent, and the agent said no. Somebody had a placard. I don't know whether it was of some kind, whether it was a handicap or whatever, and they said no, they can park there. That's not true, is it?
I have to confirm that, but there are certain places that placards are permitted to park and they're not permitted to park. But I don't believe they're not permitted to park in a no stopping area. They're not.
And that's where I was going with this.
Yeah, and I can share those guidelines with Will. But the thing is that I can't speak on behalf of the traffic enforcement agent because I don't know what really goes on with the ticketing issue aspects of that. But I know the no stopping is more of a stringent regulation in terms of don't even pull up at this curb to use it for pickup or drop off.
Right. And my question was really whether we should consider installing those in the cul-de-sac area to keep the turnaround area free, to allow emergency vehicles to be able to make those turnarounds.
I mean, look, we'll be more than happy to look at that and see whether we can install it or not. But, again, the bottom line, it comes back to enforcement, because I guarantee you may have vehicles that will still pull up at that corner of the cul-de-sac and still use the space there. It all comes back to enforcement.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll have that. We're gonna try to get these people to come in, and we'll see what else we can do.
Yeah, I think having a conversation with all the stakeholders is a good start, and then we can take it from there. Good.
Thank you. Well, why don't we?
Yes, thank you.
While you're here, Colleen, do you have any things you want to update us on?
We've just been busy with outdoor dining, outdoor learning for the schools, helping a lot of the schools get back with the social distancing, with restaurants. As you know, the outdoor dining has been extended throughout the year. So we've been answering lots of questions about, materials that are going to be used out there, for heating. Of course, the heating, those fall under the FDNY or DOB if it comes to whatever the restaurants might be using. But so far, it's been relatively good. The complaints have been very minimal. They've died down. We've have lots of restaurant owners that are complying because they want to do the good thing. And, you know, we see that the compliance rate is really good. I mean, a lot of the restaurant owners, they have been through such difficult times and they want to get back on their feet, and, you know, they're trying their best with the compliance. So those are like two things that we've been really busy with. Of course, we've been busy trying to get back to normal with our milling and paving schedules, you know, issuing permits for work to be done on the roadway. So that's pretty much it that I can tell you. You know, the city is going through severe budget cuts. It's going to impact our agency. It's also going to impact a lot of other city agencies as well. And I don't know where we stand right now. I really don't know, given the circumstances.
Mhm. Okay, thank you, Colleen. I think we have a couple of questions. Alita, can we unmute Alita?
Thanks, Chuck. Hi, Colleen. I had a couple of questions. One is about the sidewalk. Is there any, we've asked about this use of the sidewalks for retail. I don't know if there's any other answer. And also I'm wondering if you're working on the streets and repaving, if it's possible to use a paint. I know there's a paint that exists, another board member with familiarity told me, that is much more reflective in the rain than what we currently have, which seems to just disappear in the rain. So if you're delineating lines, to have something that is really reflective when it rains out, I think would increase the safety. They're already so congested that anything that helps, I think, would be useful. Thank you.
Yes, you know, Alita, it would be helpful if you can send me an email with the name of the paint. I can find out.
Oh, terrific.
Yeah, that would be
Okay.
helpful. I can definitely check with our geometric design if this is something that we would use, and if you know, if it's something that's on the list. I can get more details about it.
Okay,
And
I'm going
I'll
to
let
send an
you know.
email right now and ask the person who told me. Thank you.
Yeah. And I'm sorry, what was the sidewalk issue?
Just if retail wants to, if they're able to use the sidewalk in front of their shops.
No.
I've seen it in other cities. I know the DOT has said no so far, but I'm not sure what the difference is between the restaurants and the retail. I mean, there is a difference, but if restaurants could, if there could be rules or regulations that the stores could comply with, it may help them, at least while the weather is still warm enough for people to be walking around.
It's a very good question. I know we've worked with the retail to accommodate curbside pickup, but not putting out their materials out there or their items to sell. No. I don't think we would be in the position to allow that, not at the moment.
Can you tell me why?
Well, I mean, I think if it extends beyond the frontage of their sidewalk, that would be considered a sidewalk obstruction. And then, given that a lot of the sidewalks in the city are very narrow, you want to create space for pedestrians. And then keep in mind that, you know, we want to also create that whole social distancing for, you know, pedestrians using the sidewalk too. So by having retail out there and having people congregate, it's just going to create more of a not the social distancing.
But that's why you would have regulations, because those are the same issues that come up with restaurants where they have fixed tables and chairs that take up a lot of sidewalk space.
I mean, I can take it back. I mean, it's an interesting concept. I can take it back and get thoughts on that, but yeah.
Thank you, Colleen. It's come up at Borough Board, and other boards have the same
Really?
response, that it could be really useful, but I won't take up any more time, and I appreciate your looking into it.
That's
Thank you.
interesting. Yeah, I'll find out.
Okay, thank you.
Next, we have costs. Can we unmute costs?
Yeah, with the permanent outdoor dining, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it's supposed to be extended indefinitely, not so much indefinitely, but 12 months after the pandemic is supposed to have ended. So we could have the outdoor dining for the next 3-4 years. Is it possible to allow restaurants to build more of a permanent, stable structure? I mean, some time ago, I know a few have the tents up, and a lot of them were basically blown over with the high winds. So with the fact that it's going to be there for quite a while, can restaurant owners build more of a permanent, not so much enclosed, but more of a permanent, stable structure?
You know, Kaz, that's a really great question. And I want to say, I mean, if we get there and when we get there, that's going to be something that's going to have to be looked at in terms of whether this is going to be something permanent that we want to do and how it will change the whole streetscape. And you're absolutely right that, you know, if we do decide to allow this and make this a permanent thing, then it will change the whole dynamic of how we of the you know the structure that will be out there. Yeah.
Oh,
But we're not there yet, Kaz. We're not there yet.
tomorrow?
I wish.
One other point. Isn't it legal for anybody to extend 18 inches from their boundary line to display their wares?
Yes, there is a rule of that. Whatever you're selling, what you're selling in your store, you should be selling the same items outside.
So this
And
would
it has to be
address
within your
Alita's
property
concern.
line. It has to be
This
within
would-
your property line. You cannot extend beyond 18.
Right. So this could really help the establishments. They could use the 18 inches, but nobody, nobody enforces it. So that really they could go 3-4 feet out.
Well, it's complaint driven. So it's not
Yeah,
like
no.
nobody really enforces it. It's complaint driven.
So, that's one point for you, Alita. Legally they can go 18 inches. So that could be a big help.
Right.
Okay.
Thanks, Mike.
So I think next, we have Catherine Corkery. Unmute,
Will,
Catherine.
Catherine, you may just have to, there you go.
Hey there. So this is Kate Corkery, and I was the one that worked with Colleen and CB8 in June or July, to change the parking on Cherokee Place, to add the 2 spots on both sides for no standings for the radius turns. I'm just going to do a quick little follow-up, which I'd emailed Will, and Craig and Charles both know the information with lots of pictures. The parking rules are not being followed by the drivers of the cars with placards. It is full on one end to the other end with cars parked with placards. Beginning, it's like 2.5 weeks now since the signs were installed. It took almost 65, 70 days to have that done. Tickets are not being given. It is just one end to the other, and there's absolutely no enforcement with any ticketing being done whatsoever. So I just wanted to follow up with that. It's a little aggravating that all the work went to no resolution whatsoever to having anything done for the safety of us on this block with large moving trucks, fire trucks, moving vans, et cetera, in order to make those turns. And the fire truck got stuck, I'd say 2 weeks ago as well, trying to get around 77th Street, 78th Street through Cherokee Place.
Thank you, Kate. I think, Will, I think we need to get to traffic enforcement, and they need to make a sweep over there just to let people know that there's new regulations, and they're not going to be able to do that anymore. See, that may work, because it's new, and maybe if somebody starts that, they'll get the hint.
Yeah, will do.
Okay. I think Billy had his hand up first, actually, before. So Billy Freeland, why don't we unmute Billy?
Hi, everybody. Colleen, I'm curious whether you have an update on the temporary bike lanes that were installed at 61st and 62nd. My understanding is that there were some complaints in the neighborhood. There were some adjustments made. The borough president recently said she looked at it and was pleased with whatever tweaks DOT made. Can you just tell us sort of what's happened in the last month or so, what the changes are, and what the status is right now?
Colleen there?
Hey, Billy, you know what? My computer just went down. Hold on, I have to get back into it. My remote sign in, sign out usually shuts down very frequently, which it shouldn't. So we did make some tweaks and adjustments to the 61st and 62nd Street bike lane, which is bike lanes which are temporary at the moment. And we did receive complaints about it, yes, and we've been responding to the residents and addressing those complaints. And as what we mentioned to the residents, we are and will continue to monitor the implementation of the bike lane and bike lanes, and we will come back to the community board and we will give a presentation about them. I'm just trying to get back into my computer so I can share with you what the modifications we made. If
Do you want to come back to me after a few other questions? Would that be helpful?
I can come back to you. That's fine.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay. Why don't we have, I see another member of the public, Timur Solomon. Why don't we unmute Timur?
Hi, how are you? Thank you. Actually, my question is also for Colleen. This is basically a follow-up. So if you want to come back again to me as well afterwards in regard to 61st Street and 62nd Street's bike lanes, I have gone over 61st and 62nd from River to 5th many times because it's on my regular path on a daily basis. And I've seen the changes that have been made predominantly from 2nd Avenue East on both, well, mostly on 62nd Street with the narrowing of the bike lane and allowing 2 lanes of traffic to come down. And those have made very big improvements without question. But if there is one thing that I know in the last Community Board 8 meeting we had brought up, or I had brought up, was in regard to, which I'm sure you've heard, resident complaints about accessing our homes. If there's anything that you would put into your proposal or into your presentation later, I don't want to waste the committee's time, but it has become a very difficult situation for us because I live on 61st between 2nd and 3rd, and I have 2 children. I have two car seats in my car. If I want to actually try and get my children out of my car, I can't even do it legally within 1,000 feet of my house. The bike lane on our block is 10 feet wide, including the buffer. Maybe if something or consideration could be made to make it a little smaller so as to allow us to maybe stop in the buffer as an access point. Is that something that the DOT is looking at? Is that what you're considering, or have all the moves have already been done that you're considering?
So, my computer is back up and running. So, I mean, as many of you know, the mayor announced as part of the city's response to COVID that 9 new miles of temporary bike lanes, which including 61st and 62nd Streets from 5th to York, to be installed. 61st and 62nd Streets were chosen. So following the implementation, we did make some changes to the markings and signs, as what you just mentioned, on 62nd Street east to the bridge to alleviate the traffic congestions that we've been getting complaints about. And Billy, as I mentioned, we will continue to monitor those conditions on both, to see what modifications we can make with the design as needed. And we have been working very closely with the local precinct to deal with the congestion complaints that we've been receiving. And what we did, we also added, as you mentioned, the second full-time travel lane on 62nd Street between 1st and York Avenue, and alter the placement of the delineators between the travel and bike lanes. So we feel that with the changes that we've made, it's been working out, fairly well, and we'll continue to monitor the traffic flow to see how that has been improved or if there are more modifications that we need to make. We did get quite a few complaints about the accessing the curb, and believe it or not, we're keeping, a good list of all of those complaints so that when we do come before the community board, we're ready to address those to see how we can, make improvements to, allow for the access to residents along the corridor. I mean, I can't tell you that, we're going to remove the bike lane, because that's not going to happen at the moment. It's not, because it's not my decision and I can't make that decision. But what I can tell you is that if there are any issues that need immediate attention that you would like us to address, we're more than happy to come out there and do so and take a look at it to see what can be done, in the meantime.
If I could just ask one quick question.
Sure.
I'm a full supporter of the bike lanes. I'm a cyclist. I have no problems with it. It's just about safe access for our elderly and our children to be able to come to and from the curb without crossing a street of heavy traffic with cars and then looking both ways in the bike lane, because people do use the bike lane in both directions, though they shouldn't be. My one question is, before the next meeting, when the DOT presents, are you actively collecting data or metrics as to how much those bike lanes are actually being used? Because to be frank, I don't see them being heavily used. There are times of the day where there are more uses, but to be completely frank, the majority of those lanes sit idle and empty for most of the day. And even when they're active, there aren't a lot of cyclists using them. I'll give it to the fact that maybe not everybody knows they're there, but is the DOT actively trying to get that data to be able to present that?
And yes, we are. We are collecting data, like with many of our projects, it's data driven. When we come to the community board, we have to show X amount of cyclists are using this path. These are the days, the hours that they're using it, and whether it's an increase, and we come with data to show that, hey, this really has been a safety project. It has decreased in crashes and so forth. So a lot of our projects are data driven, and we do have to show that when we make changes to the streetscape. Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Judy Schneider from the public. Can we unmute Judy?
Thanks. Thanks, Chuck. I'm now speaking on behalf of the East 60s Neighborhood Association. Ever since these bike lanes have been put in, it seems like I'm spending all my time on them, fielding either emails or our hotline phone calls. At least 10 of the buildings that belong to the association, and I don't know how many people, have complaints about these bike lanes. And many of them have written to the commissioner, Colleen, and will continue. I got one from Park Avenue yesterday, a building I wasn't even familiar with, but they tracked us down to make complaints. The biggest complaint from a practical point of view is that the traffic stops on 2nd Avenue going down when the traffic gets backed up due to the reduced size of the street. So the traffic is out into the avenue and it doesn't flow freely on 2nd. We have a problem getting to the bridge before the bike lanes were put in. Now this is compounded and it's worse. The same happens on 1st Avenue coming up 10 when they get to the bike lane street going eastbound 62nd Street. It blocks up the traffic because the street is narrowed. And same on York and 3rd. So what we really need, and if you could take this back to your people, is we need traffic agents on 61st and 62nd on York, 1st, 2nd, and 3rd Avenue at a very minimum on those 2 blocks to direct the traffic, because otherwise the north and south traffic does not move. In addition, with this traffic being backed up, Colleen, the other big complaint we're getting is the noise complaint from the horn honking when the traffic is not moving. So this complaint is coming into the association from every place, from everyone, from buildings, from individuals, from board presidents. I've advised them all to write to DOT.
Thank you, Judy. I'll take that back.
Thank you, Judy. We have another member of the public, Evelyn David. Can you unmute Evelyn David, please?
Evelyn, you may have to hit *6 to unmute. Try hitting *6, Evelyn.
Is that
there you go.
Is that good?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much for letting me speak. And I'm not going to read this little speech that I have about the bike lanes. There's one thing nobody's mentioning, and that is the parking for commercial people is reduced by 50%. And it's not just, so now the trucks and UPS and a whole bunch of other people park when they have to make a delivery, they just stop in the middle of the street. They can't pull in on the side. There's no place for them to park. The doormen that have shifts that, okay, so let's just take care of that. So they park in the middle of the street, they go in, they make their deliveries. We sit behind the trucks, and some people go in the bike lanes or go on the sidewalk or just so, you know, the heck with it. I'm going around this thing because it sits there for a while. What are you going to do when there's an emergency? There is an ambulance, there is a fire truck that's got to get by, something that's parked in the middle of the street. You're just going to rip through the bike lanes? The answer is yes. Yes. If it's an emergency vehicle, they'll do what they have to do. Okay. I don't understand. Whatever the gentleman that spoke before this, the 60th Street Association person did say, what did he say? Oh, I can't remember. Anyway, traffic 62nd Street is it's basically they're through streets that go to the FDR, northbound and southbound. You have huge, during normal times, I don't even take the 62nd Street exit to the FDR to get northbound. It's a complete mess. And there's always been a police person there, right? A traffic person. Because traffic comes off the 59th Street Bridge and either goes down 62nd Street or goes across and goes into Manhattan. It's a complete mess. Why would you put a bike lane in the middle of this crazy busy area in Midtown? Okay, that's the first thing that totally shocked me. What really shocked me was coming home one day and seeing the bike lanes, and there had never been a meeting. Also, you changed the signage to 7 a.m. parking, stop. Okay, so residents or anybody parking on 62nd Street now has to get their car moved by 7 a.m. in the morning. It used to be 8 a.m. to 7 p.m., no parking, except for commercial. Well, half the commercial is gone now, so I don't know where they're going to go. They don't have a place to go. And then you change the signage, which makes it more stressful for anybody that's got to park there overnight and get out. Like 7:15, load up your car and get out if you have to go where you have to go. I'm a teacher. I have to go places. I can't do that anymore. I can't leave at 7 in the morning because my schools don't open that. So, I mean, you're just causing undue stress. And this is COVID. This is the worst time in the century to pull this off on us. Okay, 61st Street has a very large, a large restaurant. It has between Lex and Park, there's a very large space taken up on the south side of the street by a restaurant. That's fine. That's great for them. Where do the commercial parkers park during the day? Nowhere. They don't park anywhere. I don't know what they're doing. The other thing that's brought up to me is by doormen on Park Avenue, where we're always trying to find a parking space, and they're so nice about it. Okay, their shifts end at 7 in the morning. They can't, if they've parked there at night, they can't get back to their cars at 7 in the morning before they get a ticket. I mean, it's just more stress on them. It's just become this incredibly stressful situation. This is not little houses with driveways and you're putting in nice bike width. No, it is residential buildings in the middle of Midtown with access to the FDR and access off the FDR. You're now backing up the FDR that goes northbound and gets off at 61st Street. That's getting backed up. I don't understand it. Please think about this. I know you thought during COVID, the traffic's much less. Traffic is rebuilding back up again. It's becoming jammed. Okay, and there's no place you're just stressing everybody out. And so thank you very much for letting me speak. And I hope you will really, really, really think about this in terms of commercial vehicles. I mean, Lexington Avenue has now taken up a lot. The commercial parking is gone from there because of the restaurants. And now you've taken it away from the streets. You have to start thinking about this. Are you what exactly is your plan? To shut down this area completely? Have the whole place go out of business? You know, just think about that. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I think we're going to have further hearings, Evelyn, just so you know. They want to make the crosstown bike lanes permanent at some point, but this is now the period, the demonstration period, and they're going to come back with proposals, and there'll be a chance to have everyone be heard about what the problems are and what the issues are. But we thank you for coming and your comments.
Yeah.
Why don't I go to, go ahead. I'm sorry, Colin, you want to add something?
No, I said, no, thank you all for the comments. I really do appreciate them, and I will take it back, definitely. And believe it or not, Judy's absolutely right. She's been directing a lot of the constituents to reach out to us.
Okay, why don't we go to Michelle Birnbaum, and can we unmute Michelle?
Oh, you muted yourself back.
Yeah, by accident. Okay, yeah, thanks very much. Okay. Let me just say, I have two comments, but one about the bike lanes. One of the big issues, Colleen, and I unfortunately, you're here, so you take the fire. I know it's not your fault, and you're very accommodating to us, and we're grateful that you come to the meetings. But the big issue with the bike lane, in addition to the inconvenience, is that it mysteriously appeared. There was no notice, there was no presentation to the community board, there was no outreach to the community in any way. There was an announcement, it wasn't even an announcement. The bike lane just appeared, and then people would say, oh, did you notice there are bike lanes on 61st and 62nd? That is really not an appropriate thing to do. And the truth of the matter is, had the DOT come to the board and the community, we probably could have helped to plan them in such a way to alleviate some of the problems that everybody's having. Maybe they wouldn't have been so wide. Maybe there would have been a way to put a break in them. Maybe there'd be discussion that they shouldn't be there at all, because maybe some of the concerns about drive entry and egress and the community's entries into their building, maybe that would have outweighed the need of the cyclists. But you don't know that because nobody came to us. And now, unfortunately, you're going to be in the position of backpedaling and readjusting. They started off temporary, but within the very first announcement of temporary, there was a little phrase that said, with an eye towards making them permanent. Now, you shouldn't, if you're really doing a study, you shouldn't have an eye towards anything, because that is a predisposition. You should just listen to all of the comments and make the decision based on what you hear and use and everything you see on the ground. So if you would take that back, I would appreciate it. The other thing I just wanted to mention in response to comments about outside retail. Having retail outside is not the same need that the restaurants have. When people go to a restaurant, they'll sit for 2 hours. A restaurant cannot have business if they have one couple sitting inside for 2 hours, depending on what spacing they can arrange. Retail is different. Hordes do not go into a retail store. It's very easy to go to monitor who comes in and out of a retail store. And I would argue that probably most of the time, they're 1 or 2 people, and actually those stores would be grateful for that. So I don't see any need to put more activity on the streets, narrowing the pedestrian way, adding to the visual blight, when in fact it won't help a retail clothing business one bit. The restaurants are in a different category. So those are my comments, and I thank you for listening.
Thank you, Michelle. Well taken.
I don't know, maybe Craig can correct me, but I thought we did have a presentation of these.
You did have a presentation, and plus we also created a what's happening flyer that we shared with the community board.
Yeah, I mean, we had a big presentation about this, Michelle. And maybe you had missed it at some point, but we did. Anyhow, why don't we, Tricia Shimamura, why don't we unmute Tricia?
Thanks. I just want to get some clarity on when DOT is planning on coming back to present on some of these on the feedback that they've received, and any sort of changes or additional changes that they're planning on making. Is this for next meeting, or is this sometime in fall?
No, we are not coming back anytime soon. The changes that we've made, we've emailed all of the constituents. We've informed them of it. We've been responding to everyone. We do not plan on coming back anytime soon. And maybe I can find out. I can get more specific timeline as to when we will come back and present our findings to the community board.
Okay,
But
so this is where I have just to go back to Timur Solomon's point about what he had said. This is something that I'm very sensitive towards, the fact that these residents, our neighbors, people in our community board are having a problem accessing their building. Is something that I don't think can wait until the next time DOT comes back with their findings. So I'm wondering if there's a way that we can pass a resolution tonight or ask DOT to respond to this. What he's asking for seems completely reasonable to me. He's not asking for the elimination of a bike lane. He's asking for the narrowing of it and creating a way for that our neighbors can have access to their own building, which I think is really reasonable. And as somebody who also deals with a car seat and dealing with a young child, the idea of having to hear neighbors having to go through this in the winter time before, as the winter sets in, and dealing with all of that just seems like a nightmare. So I'm wondering if we shouldn't be passing a resolution tonight asking for DOT to immediately make adjustments to this specific area so that these neighbors can have access to their building.
All right, well, that's something maybe we can talk about after we have a little bit more discussion on this. Craig, I know Craig is next. Patricia, we'll come back to you on that though.
Okay.
Right. Well, I was just going to add, this past weekend, I took a little walk and was actually observing 61st Street for a little while. And what was fascinating to me as someone who's actually used it in a car as well as, well, I haven't used it on a bike yet, but you still, with the second through lane there, you now have the same throughput that you did before the bike lane was installed, putting the access issues aside, and I'm going to get to that in a second. So when I was walking southbound, things looked like they were operating well and smoothly, and everything was quiet. When I was returning, heading north, I noticed all this hubbub going on, and it turns out a single double parked vehicle between the bridge exit on 62nd Street and First Avenue created a large traffic jam going up the exit ramp on the bridge, and vehicles that were continuing up to 63rd Street to make the left, they were able to move through the intersection, whereas the vehicles that were making the right turn onto 62nd Street were getting backed up as two lanes had to go into one. So my point is that we need to, as we're moving forward with this and looking at the at possibilities to modify it, we need to address some of the parking issues perhaps, and address ways to ensure that we have those two through lanes always operating and working, or else we do get that congestion and the air quality impacts and the noise impacts, and no one wants that. But that brings me also to a larger point that we need to come back to, and this is more systemic than just here on 61st and 62nd Street, and that is we have to really come up with a strategy, and the city absolutely needs to take the lead on this, but how to deal with all the double parking and the access issues, whether they be because of bike lanes or open restaurants or anything else, where as soon as a car stops, it creates all the congestion and problems that go along with it. And we may need to have some more serious discussions. I brought this up before about drop off lanes and spaces and delivery spaces that are reserved for prompt drop-offs that don't block lanes, that may replace some of the parking to be able to allow traffic to flow freely and provide people with safe access to be able to do expeditious pickups and drop-offs of people and goods. So that's something that we're going to have to revisit as we go forward, but I think we need to keep our eye on the ball and make sure that we're thinking about that, because this issue is going to just continue to explode with more deliveries taking place and more trucks doing deliveries, and the Amazons doing their massive curbside deliveries, and bike lanes and everything else. And everyone knows I'm a supporter of bike lanes, but we need to protect access, and that's something that needs to be part of the equation in each and every case.
Thanks, Craig. Billy Freeland, I know, wanted to had his hand up. Billy, can we unmute Billy?
Yep.
Good. Okay, you're on.
You know, I agree with what Craig just said. I think we need to look at this in a more systematic way. And I thank our neighbors who have, come to speak to us and share their concerns. I just wish we had sort of, typically when we discuss these proposals, we have an image of the lane and we know what the width of the bike lane is. And my understanding is that it was a certain width, and I'd like to know from Colleen sort of what that was. And then it was just narrowed. And I'm curious what the current width of the bike lane is. Of course, if we can increase the buffer, that would be terrific while not compromising the lane. But if we end up, proposing a resolution that essentially would make the lane unusable, I'd have a problem with that. I don't think that's at all what Tricia is suggesting, but I would just want to make sure through DOT that it is possible to improve the safety for all involved without compromising the lane. And I think if we do a resolution, it would be nice for us as a board to comment on asking DOT and the city to think more comprehensively about, when you do these types of designs, what are you going to do about drop off and commercial unloading? And to Craig's point, we should be, I think, advocating for designated loading zones, particularly in these areas that are prone to congestion, and thinking more broadly about how, as I think it was, may have been Evelyn, it may have been Timur, but the connection to the Queensboro, one of the historically most congested areas in New York City, that's got to be part of, I think, our thinking as a city. So that's all a long way of saying, if we're going to do a resolution, I hope we would also sort of voice some support for the bike lane, for the goal of it, because you are connecting to the Queensboro, you are serving a lot of essential workers in New York City who have, it's very unsafe getting from Queens to Manhattan and back in that area. And I think we should also voice support for larger, more sort of strategic thinking and planning about what to do about the issues that have been raised. So that's all I wanted to say for now.
Thank you, Billy. Peter Borak is next. Peter, can we unmute him?
Thanks so much. Craig, I think you really did a really good job. That was really articulate. I think we've reimagined the way that our streets work, and I'm a big proponent of bike lanes as well. But the way that we've done it now is such that when there is a double parked car or a double parked truck, it really screws everything up. And there can be, I think your experience with 61st and 2nd is just one of a long list of examples. And I think we do have to reimagine where Ubers and Lyfts actually have designated drop-off zones. I've seen that a little bit. We discussed this, I think, 2 or 3 years ago. I don't recall when. I was a proponent of it then. I think it's something we should definitely revisit. And just to your point is, until there's a real vaccine here, people are going to continue to be doing a lot more online shopping. And so the amount of deliveries is only going to increase. And we have to, maybe we don't love that, but I think we have to accept that and try and work with that and set up, we talked once about someone from this community came and said, maybe we should have all deliveries done at night to alleviate traffic. I don't think maybe that's the way to go, but we really have to think systematically about how we handle this. So Craig, I think we should maybe put that on the agenda and really think through that. Thank you.
Tricia, I know you wanted to, I don't know if you want to offer an amendment, a motion on something or not an amendment. So you have to unmute yourself.
Sorry. Yeah. So I still think that we should do a resolution. I 100% agree. I want to give credit to Peter because I feel like the first month that we went through this pandemic, Peter was saying then that we need to be talking about reimagining our streets. And I remember thinking like, yeah, that makes sense. And Craig, I agree with you. Like, I still think that makes sense. I think that we need to talk about it, but I like just tonight, because we have a community member here, because they're talking to us about a very real problem. I appreciate, and I agree. I'm not saying eliminate the bike lane. I'm really just, if there's, and I wish that there was a visual here. Maybe Colleen can speak a little bit more to the specifics, but if there's, as Mr. Solomon is saying, a way to use some of that buffer to allow access for those residents, I think we need to do something tonight on this. So maybe Colleen can speak a little bit about the specifics of that spot, and then I'm happy to put forth a resolution.
So, I mean, you know what, I'm happy to see what we can do for that building, and I'll take it back, you know, to see else what we can do in terms of the buffer. And, you know, I want to go back to what Craig said. Craig, you're absolutely right. When we come to present these projects, I think it's great that the community board want to think about these projects holistically and think about the impacts in terms of parking laws for commercial trucks and curbside access and so forth. And it's a lot. It really is a lot to take. And, you know, we're more than happy to work with, you know, the buildings and see what we can do and how we can accommodate these requests. So let me have a conversation with my colleagues tomorrow, and we will see what we can do. Okay.
That makes sense. I just don't want it. I mean, I want then us to have some way to like follow up on this, because I don't want it to go away.
The individual is more than happy can reach out to Will and myself, and I can work with him and his building. Okay. I'm happy to do that.
Okay, Tricia, how do you want to proceed? Do you want to let it see if they can work something out first?
Yeah, I guess that makes sense. Provided if that all makes sense, then that's fine. But I guess my only caveat is that if it doesn't work out, if we can put this on our agenda for next month, I just don't want to let it go.
Absolutely. Timur Solomon, why don't we unmute Timur? Since you were
Thank you. Tricia, I just want to say thank you very much for the support in that. And Colleen, I know that you have been in contact with, I'm part of Treadwell Farm Historic District, and I know you've been in active contact.
Yes, and we've been working with Julianne.
Exactly.
Yes,
Yeah.
we've had conversations with Julianne, and we are looking at the parking regulations to see what we can do to make the changes.
Right.
And again, I'll share with you my email address in the chat.
Sure.
Feel free to reach out to me, and we'll see what we can do to accommodate your request. Okay.
Okay. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Okay. Why don't we go to old business? And this is an issue that's come up, that there are streets with no street cleaning regulations. And Colleen, while you're still here, I know that obviously you work with sanitation, even though it's DOT that does the signage. And I guess the question is, you know, how does that work? Is it the Department of Sanitation that says they want street cleaning regulations on certain streets, and then you look at them and then you put them in, or how does that system work then?
Sure. So the Department of Sanitation with street cleaning rule regulations, if they're looking to have those implemented, they would work with the DOT, and they would let us know the hours or the days that their cleaners would be out there. And it would have to be in coordination with their schedules in the surrounding area. And they would ask us to look at it and create the signs and install it for them. But please keep in mind, street cleaning rule regulations also are requests that a resident can make through the community board, where they feel like, hey, my street's not being clean. I would like to see street cleaning rule regulations install. And if that's the case, then they would come before the community board and they would request that. And of course, the community board would send us a resolution, and we would work with Department of Sanitation on the days and the hours as what's recommended to install the signage for the street cleaning rule regulations.
Craig, I know we did have an email, or Will, that talked about a particular, street and problem, but I don't know if there was a request specifically for this.
Right. I don't think that was a request necessarily. But it also ties into the letter that we had written requesting that the Department of Sanitation provide us with a list of any street within our district that doesn't have street cleaning regulations currently in place. And I think what we needed was that list as a starting point to be able to go back to DOT to try to move the issue forward.
Yeah, well, we haven't received an answer from them, I think, right? No. Why don't we follow up and see? Why don't you follow up and see if we can get something out of them? Because I agree.
I thought they told us that all streets were cleaned. It was something like pretty laughable like that.
Yes, but do they, that's a nice goal. But I guess the question is, do they have street cleaning? If they don't have street cleaning regulations, then people aren't going to move their cars. All right, we'll have to maybe we'll have to with the Environment and Sanitation Committee, we'll have to put our heads together and see if we can get them to be a little more forthcoming. And yeah, Rita had emailed me before, and we're talking about old business, and I don't know if there's any, Rita, I know you wanted to raise something in old business, so why don't you go ahead? And then Michelle, I know you want to make a comment too, but why don't you go ahead and why don't we go ahead and unmute Rita Popper?
You know about the dangerous situation that exists on 91st Street, and I wrote to you and Craig after talking to management that they really just need the street leveled where the pavers have come up, and we understand that the city won't put back the pavers. Management was willing to put back the pavers, or there is now an insurance problem. There is somebody attending this meeting, Joel Boris, which I'd like to follow me, please. He is the president of the Condo Association, and he has all the information about the problem now with insurance.
Yeah, Joel, I know he's been here before, so yeah, why don't we ask Joel to comment, unmute Joel.
Unmute Joel, please.
Am I unmuted?
Yes.
Yeah, you're unmuted.
We had an issue because several people have fallen on the street, been injured, and brought lawsuits, frankly, against the condominium. And our insurance company, as of a week ago, said they were terminating the insurance for the street. Now, we don't own the street, and we can't maintain the street, but we're the ones who are getting sued for a community problem. If the DOT could take their street and level it, maybe it would be possible for us to put back in the pavers, even though some are missing. But we can't leave it this way. I'm amazed that DOT hasn't been sued yet and the city hasn't been sued, although they may have been. But the insurance kind of is the last straw, because now we're exposed without insurance, which frankly, we don't have any liability in the insurance, but we do have defense costs. So without insurance, we have to defend. I'm at my wit's end. I don't really know what the answer is. Colleen, maybe you can tell me a little bit about what DOT's position is and why they don't want to fix the street.
Is it the street or is it the sidewalk? Is this the issue, Rita, the longstanding issue with the pavers and with the undermining issue in the road?
Yeah. It's the street, not the sidewalk.
It's in the road.
The road, the sidewalk is fine. In fact,
but we've been through this. This is not, I've had DEP go out there, take a look at the structure. They didn't find anything. Con Ed went out there and looked at the structure. They didn't find anything as well. I think you've hired Sam Schwartz as well. Is that correct?
It is, but you have to understand, number one.
I do understand, but the city is not responsible. DOT is not responsible for that.
So maybe it's DEP.
And I've been trying my best. we've had site visits, and I've communicated that to the board and to Rita, and I've actually had DEP go back out there again to take a look at the site and their structure, and they say there's no undermining issue. It's not DOT. DOT is not responsible for what's going on under, the structure there, the roadway.
There's nothing under the structure anymore. There was a sewer leak.
Okay.
And they help us if we got the work order for the sewer that was above it on 3rd Avenue. And how long was that sewer leaking? And what
If I can correct you, it was a storm drain sewer, so not the sewer that's.
Okay, so that's DEP. DEP is the appropriate agency that has jurisdiction over that. It's not DOT.
But even if DEP has jurisdiction, does DEP, are they the agency responsible for restoring the street?
They're the agency responsible for fixing their structure.
It's
And
fixed. Their structure's fixed.
we are not going to restore your cobbles. We're not going to do that. That has to be done by you.
No, but the question is, look, we could talk about this all night, but I've talked to Ed about this, and what Ed's basically said was, yeah, DOT can't do anything with the pavers. The question is, could DOT just come in and repair the street, period? And that's, I think, something that we need to pursue. And that's one of the alternatives. Rita presented a few alternatives. So I think we need to just follow up with this.
Thank
I
you.
think that's terrific. If we can have either DEP or DOT, I don't really care who, level the street, we could go and we could hire somebody to replace to put the pavers back down. But that can't be done with a street that has sinkholes in it.
Well, Joel, we'll see if what can be done. And it's
Diana Bosniak, whose hand is raised, is also part of RY management. Would you mind unmuting her?
all right. But I mean, I don't want to belabor this point because Diane, why don't we unmute Diane?
I just wanted to say that the last time that DEP was out, that Colleen had arranged for them to come out, Mike Farnan did indicate that that storm drain was repaired somewhere along the way. We're just trying to find out now, when was that storm drain repaired? And then the timeline as to, when water was then stopped gushing into the Con Ed, because that seems to be what undermined the area up at the top there where the Con Ed lines are running and everything else.
Right.
And if we can put a timeline on that, then everything else will fall into play. But as we say, there are sinkholes there. As Joel said, who's the president of the Condo Association, I'm not going to talk over him. We're willing to restore the pavers. We'll take them, we'll put them on the side, but we just need a flat street. Why would we be?
So you're saying there's sinkholes there. If you do not, or if the responsible agency does not find out what is causing the sinkhole, and DOT comes out there and fix the roadway, you're still going to have that sinkhole condition come back again. If you're asking about the timeline for the sewer when it was repaired, you have to ask DEP. They're the ones who would have that information.
Well, I've asked several times. I'm not getting any response. And
know
so
that
I don't
it's
know where
no
else to
longer-
turn. And that's why I guess we're turning here.
If you're not getting, I'm surprised, that you're not getting the information. If you're not getting the information, maybe the board can help you with getting that information, the community board.
We can do, but look, we're not going to chase the bureaucratic tail. We want to get this done. And that's why we're going to go back and see what we can get out of DOT, but we're not going to wait forever. And then we're going to talk to DEP. Then we're going to talk to DOT and see what they can do, not what they won't do, but what they can do. And that's what we want to try to get it done. Okay. Thanks, Rita. So let's see, Michelle's had her hand up. Why don't we unmute Michelle?
Thank you. I just want to say, when we're talking about sanitation signs, the alternate side of the street parking signs that used to indicate sanitation, either Tuesday, Friday, Monday, Thursday, whatever. Now those signs, they are remaining in place, but the public has been directed to just remove their cars on the last day of that sign. So if a sign says Monday and Thursday for street cleaning, it now means that it's only Thursday. And if it says Tuesday and Friday, it now means it's only Friday. So the driving public sort of knows that about the signs that are on the alternate sides of the street, so they don't need separate signage. As far as the other streets that said either no parking 7 to 7 or 6 to 8 or whatever it said, what was the program before was that those streets could be cleaned at any time. In other words, if there's no parking there from 6 a.m. to 8 or 7 to 7, it's during that time period that cleaning can be done. So I'm not sure what has happened now that we are calling for new sanitation signs everywhere. What has changed in this protocol that I'm not understanding?
No, I think, go ahead, Craig.
I think the issue is that there are certain streets where there are no restrictions in place, and at no time is the curbside parking prohibited in one form or another. And
I've never seen, I mean, maybe there are, but I've never seen a street like that. There are parking regulations on every single street in the city. Now, you could argue that where there's a truck loading zone and there's a certain amount of time that let's say it's from 7 a.m. to 10 a.m., that cleaning can be done after 10 a.m. because the trucks are gone. If it's no parking for truck loading 7 to 7, then cleaning has to be done before 7 a.m. or after 7 p.m. But every street has some kind of a parking regulation, and the assumption is that the cleaning is done either before or after those regulations expire.
But as soon as those regulations expire, anyone can park there legally. So the point is that at no point is there no vehicles barred from parking over there, whether it's commercial parking transitioning into nothing.
So then the extension that you're looking for, let's say a street says no parking from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m., a sign can then say street cleaning from 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. Is that what you're looking for?
Right, and this is similar to what we saw on 63rd Street and 64th Street back, I don't know, sometime earlier this year or at the end of last year, when we had a few months with consecutive issues in play where curbs weren't being cleaned because of a lack of signage, and we put in signage on those blocks.
So what had been the plan, if you know, of the Department of Sanitation before this issue was being addressed? I mean, it's 50 years, this has been the circumstance. What was the protocol with the Department of Sanitation?
I don't have the answer, Chuck. I don't know if you know if there's any history there, but that's why we're trying to get Department of Sanitation to provide us with a list of any blocks that don't have those street cleaning regulations in place, where they essentially have no time frame where they can consistently access the curbside.
It's just unusual. Okay, if we can get the answer to that, it's just unusual to me that this is now a brand new problem. I mean, this 50 years, this has been the situation. I imagine the Department of Sanitation had been able to work that out, but I look forward to hearing more about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Billy Freeland, can we unmute Billy?
Thanks. I'll be quick. Chuck, thank you for pushing on this James Cagney Place issue. I think it's really important. I was just going to ask, is there anything any of us can do to help, whether it's to push this forward, establishing any sort of working groups to help the community navigate this? Because I know you've been doing a lot, but just want to see us stay on top of it and get some sort of resolution here.
Yeah, well, let's see what happens when we talk to DOT. Let's see where we are. If not, we may have to form a group and march on City Hall some way.
I'm always available to march.
You can't go inside these days easily.
Thanks.
Jordan, Woke, sorry.
I'm the person who put this issue in. I was walking on Lexington Avenue between 77th and 78th, and on the east side, The sign says, because I took a photograph, 3-hour commercial vehicle, Monday to Friday, 7 to 10 a.m. And then there's some hours when it's only 2-hour parking, but there is no time when there is no parking. And I swear I saw a street sweeper coming down, and obviously it couldn't get to the curb. But I think that you'll find from 79th Street down quite far, several blocks, that on both the east and the west side, there is no time set apart specifically for street cleaning.
Thank you, Jordan. That's helpful. Alita Camp, our board chair. Shoot.
Thanks. So I'm just saying this in my private life as a, well, partly both, but as a mediator, I'd be willing to sit down with DEP and DOT and the condo and see what we could work out with everyone in the same room, if that helps at all, which is not to take away from all the fine work that you've done on this, Chuck and Craig, but to just sort it out. Maybe with the pavers out of the question, it makes it a whole lot easier for DOT. But there's a lot of finger pointing going on, and before the snows come, if they come this year, it would be really useful to get this done. So I'm offering my services if they can be of any help at all.
Thank you, Alita. That's very nice. We can certainly look at that. Do we have any other business? Since I think a lot of us would like to see the debate coming up shortly. Okay. I thank you, everyone, for attending, and we are adjourned until our meeting the first Wednesday in November.
Have a good night. Happy debate watching.
Thank you. Thank you, Chuck and Craig, and thank you, everyone.
Bye.